So welcome everybody to this latest video on 162 Maths, and in this video we'll be going over how to find the highest common factor and the lowest common multiple by using a Venn diagram. I'll also go through some example questions of what to expect if you get these questions in an exam. Now, one of the most effective ways of working out the highest common factor or the lowest common multiple from more complex numbers or bigger numbers or even algebraic terms is to use a Venn diagram. Now, looking at this example, it's asking us to find the highest common factor and the lowest common multiple of 126 and 23,814. Now, using more traditional methods of potentially finding a number that divides into both those numbers by trial and error on your calculator, or by writing down the 126 times table along with the 23,814 times table, as I'm sure you can probably appreciate, is going to be a very time consuming task. So what we want to try and develop is a much quicker way of working the HCF and the LCM of two larger numbers, or in some extreme values, algebraic terms. Now, the following are the steps that you need to follow to find the lowest common multiple and the highest common factor by using a Venn diagram. Now, it might seem like a lot of steps and it might seem quite confusing and quite a tedious task to remember, but trust me, when we go through some examples, I'll hopefully make some clear understandings about these 4 steps, and you'll spot that actually they're not that bad to be able to do. So the first thing you need to be able to do is to write each number as a product of their primes. Now, unlike when you're writing your final answer, when you're asked to find the products of their primes of a particular number, you would usually use indices or use powers to group the common factors together to make it much easier to write. Now, in this particular step, what you want to try and do is to make life a little bit easier for you is to not write them using powers. So just write the long list of separate powers. So if it's 2 to the power of 3, then you just write 2 times 2 times 2 instead. Now, writing numbers as a product of their primes can easily be done by either drawing a factor tree if it's on a non-calculator paper, which tends to be quite a lot of people's preferred choice, or if it's on a calculator paper and you've got access to a Casio calculator, then there is a feature on your calculator that will automatically convert any number into a product of their primes. Now, just a quick little reminder on how you actually do that is if you just type in any number, so let's go for 1250. I press equals, so just make sure it's on the bottom half of your screen, and then press shift, and then what you want to do is press the button. You should see a little sort of second function feature that says fact, and if I press that, it will automatically convert the number into a product of their primes. Now, unfortunately, if you don't have a Casio calculator, I've not known any other manufacturer of a calculator that has this feature, so it might be exclusive to Casio, but if you do, then just try and look out for that fact feature. You might have to look at the manual. So if I tried another number, let's go for 25608, let's just go for that, and I press equals and I press shift and then fact, and you can see there it automatically converts it as a product of their primes. Now, going back to step 1, if I was to write this as a product of their primes, what I don't want to do is write 2 cubed. Instead, I would write 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 11 times 97. And just a little reminder, this feature is actually really good for spotting whether a number is prime, because if you enter a prime number and you press the shift fact feature, if nothing changes, it means the number is prime. So here, if I press shift and fact, it doesn't change, so therefore 19 is prime. So if I tried 91, which many people think is prime, press shift and fact, you can see there, because it's converted into a product of primes, 91 is not prime. Now, going back to step 2, the next thing we then need to do is to draw a Venn diagram, making sure you have enough room to write the numbers inside and label each ellipse. So try not to do a really diddly Venn diagram, because you need to make sure that you're able to put numbers and put terms inside them. Then the third step is to complete the Venn diagram by writing all the factors inclusive and exclusive to each number. Now, don't worry if that step doesn't make any sense or you're not too sure what inclusive and exclusive means, then when we go through some examples, hopefully that will make sense. But inclusive is basically factors, numbers that appear in both the lists, and exclusive are numbers that only appear for that number. Then the fourth step is to find the lowest common multiple. What you need to do is multiply all the numbers in your Venn diagram together, and then to find the highest common factor, all you need to do here is just multiply the numbers that are just in the middle section of your Venn diagram together, and the diagram shows each of these. So for example, if I just write down, let's say, some numbers here, so let's go for 2, 3, 5, and let's go for 2, 7, and let's go for 11, like so. So here the lowest common multiple will be 2 times 3 times 5 times 2 times 7 times 11. I'd enter that into my calculator and I would work out the answer. And let me just do that. What you don't want to do is leave your answer as a product. So 2 times 3 times 5 times 2 times 7 times 11. You don't have to put your numbers in order. So that therefore would be 4620. Now here, if I just had 2, 7, then that means the highest common factor is just going to be 2 times 7, which is 14. So now let's have a look at some example questions. So the question is asking us to find the highest common factor and the lowest common multiple of 480 and 882. So the first thing I want to do is to write down each of those numbers as a product of their prime. So for this first one, I'll draw a factor tree. So you can just remind yourself on how we do that. So again, what you're doing is finding two numbers that multiply together to equal the top number and circling any prime numbers. So here I've just gone for 2 times 240. Now remember that the numbers that you do might differ for the ones that someone else is doing, but ultimately what you should have is the same numbers that are being circled. So here let's go for 2 times 120. And then let's change it up. Let's go for 3 times 40. Then 8 times 5. And then 4 times 2. And then 2. And then for 882, I'm going to use my calculator. So let me just get that up again and do 882, press equals, then shift and fact. So I've got 2 times 3 squared, so 2 times 3 times 3 times 7 times 7. And let me just bring that calculator up to make sure I've not entered it wrong. Nope, that seems absolutely fine. So then from this, what I'm then going to do is write 480, and then I'm just going to write all those circle numbers together. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 2. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got 1, 3. And I've got 1, 5. So from this, now the next thing I then need to do is to draw my Venn diagram. Now don't worry about the neatness, don't worry about drawing a box around it, that's not going to be an issue because this is just the working out. So for this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to circle the numbers that appear in both lists. So I've got a 2 in both lists, I've got a 3 in both lists, and that's it. So I'm going to write 2 and 3 in the middle. Now going back to the 882, the numbers that are exclusive are 3, 7 and 7. So I'm going to write 3, 7 and 7 here. And the numbers exclusive to 480 are 2, 2, 2, 2, so 4 2s and a 5. So here I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 and a 5. So that there is my Venn diagram completed. Now to find the highest common factor, all I need to do is multiply. Let me use a different colour because I don't want it to be confusing. So let's go for orange. So to find the highest common factor, that's just going to be the middle section. So it's just going to be the numbers in the middle section multiplied together. So that's going to be 2 times 3, which the answer is 6. Then to find the highest common factor, so the LCM, the lowest common multiple rather, that's what I'm talking about there. So the lowest common multiple, all I need to do is multiply all the numbers in the Venn diagram together. So that's going to be 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 5. That's the left-hand version. Then I need to multiply the middle numbers, which is 2 times 3. And then I need to multiply the numbers on the right, which is 3 times 7 times 7. And if I type that all into my calculator, now if you want to use powers to save you time, that's fine, but just make sure that you are including every single number there. Again, do not worry about the order. And if I press equals, I get an answer of 70,560. It seems quite a large number, but it is what it is. So now let's have a look at question 2. Now, if you kind of get gist of the steps in which we do this, then feel free to pause the video, have attempted it, then unpause to see if we get the same answer. So for question 2, we're going to find the lowest common multiple and the highest common factor of 225 and 150. So again, I'm going to kind of jump ahead and just write down step 1. So it's 225 equals and 150. Now, if I work out the highest common factor using a factor tree or by using my calculator, and again, it's good practice to be able to do both, I find that 225 is 3 times 3 times 5 times 5, and 150 is going to be 2 times 3 times 5 times 5. So the next thing for me then to do is to draw my Venn diagram. And I label it. So I've got 150 and 225. And again, it really doesn't matter which ones you label which. The next thing for me then to do is to complete the Venn diagram. So I write down the numbers that appear in both. So I've got 3, a 3, and a 5, and a 5. So I write 3, 5 in the middle. I write down the numbers exclusive to, oh, actually there's another 5. So I can write a 5 there. Then the numbers exclusive to 150 is 2. So I can write a 2 there. And the numbers exclusive to 225 is 3. Like so. So that's my Venn diagram completed. And then step 4, to find the highest common factor, I multiply together numbers in the middle. So that's going to be 3 times 5 times 5, which is 75. And for the lowest common multiple, I multiply all the numbers in the Venn diagram together. So that's going to be 2 times 3 times 5 times 5 times 3. And if I type that all into my calculator, now you find that on a non-calculator paper your numbers will be easier for you to do. If you do end up with big numbers, then you might just find that it might be worth more marks. So if it takes you a bit of time, do not worry. You might get more complicated questions, but the method is going to be exactly the same. So now let's move on to our third example. So it says find the HCF and the LCM of 3080 and 264. So again, the first thing I want to do is to write each number as a product of their primes. So again, I'll save a bit of time just by using the calculator and writing that up. So here I get 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 11, and then 3080. I should have 2 times 2 times 2 times 5 times 7 times 11. So I then draw my Venn diagram and label it. So 264 3080, and I then start circling which numbers appear in both, and by writing numbers in order it just makes it easier for you to do this step. So I've got 3 2s, and I've got an 11, and the numbers exclusive to 264 is 3, and the numbers exclusive to 3080 is 5 and 7. Now try and make sure that your numbers don't look like 2-digit numbers. Just try and separate them so you can see. Don't worry about how it looks. It's just preventing you from making any silly mistakes by not realizing what you've done. So here the highest common factor is going to be the numbers in the middle multiplied together. So that's going to be 2 times 2 times 2 times 11. And if I type that in, that's going to give me an answer of 88. And the lowest common multiple is going to be 3 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 11 times 5 times 7. And if I type that in, so I get 9240. Now, if you're ever unsure about the method and you forget, your highest common factor will always be the smaller number. The lowest common multiple will always be the bigger of the two methods. So now let's move on to an algebraic one. So this question here, it says find the highest common factor and the lowest common multiple of 20x to the power of 4 y cubed and 150 x cubed and y. So first things first, let's just do this. So we've got 20x 4y cubed. Now what I want to do is write this as a product to their primes. Now 20 I can write as 2 times 2 times 5. So that's the number bit sorted. I then write x to the power of 4, so that's x times x times x times x. And I've got y cubed, so that's going to be y times y times y. Then moving on to 150, so let's use a different colour. So let's go for 150 x cubed y. Now 150, I can write that as a product of its prime by writing 2 times 3 times 5 times 5. So that's the number sorted. Then I'm writing 3 x's and 1 y, like so. Now from this, what I then need to do is to draw my Venn diagram and just label it. So I've got 20x 4y cubed and I've got 150 x cubed y. Then the next step is to circle the numbers and algebraic letters that appear in both. So I've got a 2, I've got a 5, I've got 3 x's, so 1, 2, 3, and I've got a y. So then writing those in, and again this is where you want to make sure you've got enough space. I've got 2, 5, I've got 3 x's, so 1, 2, 3, and a y. Then I'm writing a 1's exclusive to 20x4y cubed. So I've got a 2, an x, and 2 y's. So I've got a 2, an x, and 2 y's. Then the 1's exclusive to 150 x cubed y is 3, 5, and that's it. So then from this I can then work out what my highest common factor is going to be. So the highest common factor is just the middle terms multiplied together. So that's going to be 2 times 5 times x times x times x times y, which if I simplify, that gives me 10. That gives me x cubed and that gives me y. So the answer then is 10x cubed y. Then for the lowest common multiple, I've got to multiply all the things inside the Venn diagram multiplied together. So these 4, these 6, and these 2. And it might make it a little bit messy, but fortunately that's just the nature of this question. So here I've got 2 times 2. I'm going to probably write the numbers in order. So I've got 2 2's, I've got 3, I've got 2 5's, and then counting the x's, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just going to write x4 just to save my pen, and then I've got 3 y's, so I write y cubed. So then simplifying all of this, so 2 times 2 times 3 times 5 is 300, and then I've got x to the power of 4 y cubed, and there is my final answer. So now moving on to our 5th example. So again, if you're wanting to have an attempt at this one, then all you need to do is just simply pause the video and unpause when you've completed it and see if we get the same answer. So for this question, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of use product to their primes without having to write out things, because you might be able to spot a particular shortcut. So if I start off with 990 x squared y7, I don't know if I've put an extra x there, so let me just rewrite that because that's going to get confusing. And then so 990 as a product of their primes is 2 times 3 squared times 5 times 11. And then I've got x squared y to the power of 7. Then with 1080 x5 y4. Now 1080 as a product of their primes is 2 cubed times 3 cubed times 5. And then I've got times x to the power of 5 times y to the power of 4. So when you're doing your Venn diagram, so let me just draw my Venn diagram quite poorly, but I'm just quickly label it. So from this, what you want to do is put the things with the lowest power in the middle. So here I've got 2 to the power 1, 2 cubed, so the lowest power there is going to be 2, so 2 goes there. With the 3's, the smallest power is 3 squared. So I can write, I'm going to write 3 times 3 just because it's easier. I've got a 5 in both. Then taking the smallest power of x, well, that's going to be x squared. And taking the smallest power of y, I've got y to the power of 4. And as you can see, it's going to get quite congested. So again, make sure you've got space inside your Venn diagrams and your ellipses to write numbers down. So then from this, looking at 990 x squared y to the power 7, I then look to myself and think, right, well, I've already got, and with this, I've got 1, 2, and I need 1, 2, so that's fine. I've got 3 squared, that's fine because I've got 2 3's in the circle. I've got a 5, and I've got a 5, but I haven't got 11, so let's stick 11 there. I've got x squared, and I've got x squared, that's fine. I need y to the power of 7, but I've only got 4 y's, so I need another 3 y's. And see, as you can see, this method, although it's a little bit quicker, can be quite confusing. So if you don't like this method, which I'm doing, do not worry, just go back and do the original method, and that'll be all fine. It's just a little bit more time consuming, but if it makes sense to you and it's kind of increasing the chances of you getting full marks, then just go for that method. So moving on to 10,080 x to the power 5, y to the power 4. So here I need 3 2's, and I've only got 1, so I need another 2. I need 3 3's, and I've only got 2, so I need another 3. I need 1 5, and I've got 1 5, that's fine. I need x to the power 5, so I need 5x, I've only got 2 x's, so I'm going to need another 3. And I need y to the power 4, and I've got y to the power 4, so that's fine. So that there is my Venn diagram completed. So then moving on to the highest common factor. So here I've got to multiply everything inside that middle section. So it's going to be 2 times 3 squared times 5 times x squared times y to the power of 4. So then if I group the numbers together, so 2 times 9 times 5 is 90. So it's 90x squared y to the power of 4. Then to work out the lowest common multiple, again, all I've got to do is just multiply everything together. So I've got 11 times y cubed times 2 times 3 squared times 5 times x squared times y to the power of 4 multiplied by 2 squared times 3 times x to the power of 3, which seems like a lot, but it's just something we're going to have to do. So we've got 11 times 2 times 9 times 5 times 4 times 3 gives me 11880. Then looking at the x's, I've got x squared times x to the power 3. So multiply the powers, and so that gives me, add the powers, so that becomes x to the power of 5. And then looking at the y's, I've got y cubed and y to the power 4, so that gives me y to the power of 7. And there is my final answer for the lowest common multiple. So now let's have a look at this reverse question. So this first reverse question says, Dhruv is thinking of two numbers greater than 10. He says that the highest common factor of my two numbers is 7 and the lowest common multiple is 84. And the question is asking us to write down the two numbers that Dhruv is thinking of. So let's first of all highlight the key bits of information. So we're looking for two numbers that's greater than 10. I know that the highest common factor is 7, and I know that the lowest common multiple is 84. So let's first of all start by drawing our Venn diagram. And let's just label the two numbers as x and y. Now we know that the highest common factor is 7, so that must mean that the highest common factor must be in the middle, and that is a prime number, so I could just write 7. Now the lowest common multiple are all the numbers that you can see in the Venn diagram. So if I write 84 and I then convert that into a product of its prime, so 84 as a product of their prime is going to be 2 times 2 times 3 times 7. These are the four numbers that I need to place in this diagram. So if I just collect these up, so I've got 2 squared times 3 times 7. Now 7 has already been taken because that's the number in the middle. So I've got 2 sections and 2 numbers to left to right. So here is going to be 2 and a 2, and on the other Venn, the ellipse is going to be a 3. Now I can then work out what the 2 numbers are going to be. So x equals 2 times 2 times 7, which is 4 times 7, which is 28. And y is going to be 7 times 3, which is 21. They're both greater than 10, so that there is my final answer. Now, one thing you may have been tempted to do is, what you could have done is put the 2 2's and a 3 all in one circle, which would have been fine. The highest common factor is still 7 and the lowest common multiple is still 84. But the problem with this is that my 2 numbers would therefore be 2 times 2 times 3 times 7, which is 84. And the second number is just going to be 7, and those 2 numbers there aren't greater than 10, so that there is not the answer. Another thing that you may have been tempted to do is to put a 2 here and a 3 here and a 2 there and separate the 2's, but the problem with this is that the numbers have got to be exclusive, so that means that x equals 2 times 7, so I wrote times there, so let me just write equals, and y equals, let me just write 7 there, and then y equals, it's going to be 7 times 2 times 3. And as you can see that I've got a 2 in both. Now if that is the case, then there should be a 2 in the middle, but we've been told that the highest common factor is 7, so that's why the 2 2's need to be in the same ellipse or the same section of the ellipse. Otherwise it just invalidates the information that's given to me in the question. So here my final answer should be 28 and 21. You can write those numbers in any order. So then moving on to our last example, it says that a and p are 2 numbers. As a product of their prime factors, a equals 3 times 5 to the power of 4 times y squared, and p equals 3 cubed times 5 squared times y cubed. It says the highest common factor of a and p is 90575, and the question is asking us to find the value of y. So first things first, let's write these as a product of their primes, ignoring the powers. So I've got 3 times, and I've got 4 5's, and I've got 2 y's, and then for p I've got 3 3's, I've got 2 5's and 3 y's. So then drawing my Venn diagram, I've got a and I've got p. So then looking at the ones that appear in both, well, I've got 3, I've got 2 5's, and I've got 2 y's. So that's what's going to go in the middle. So I've got 3, 2 5's and 2y. And then ones exclusive to A are 5 and 5. And the ones exclusive to P are 2 3's and a y. So then to find the highest common factor, which they've said is 9,075, that's basically all the things in the middle multiplied together. So from this we get the HCF equals 3 times 5 times 5 times y, and that all multiplies together to give me 9,075. So simplifying the left hand side, I get 75y squared equals 9075. Divide both sides by 75 and I get y squared equals, and that equals 121. So therefore y equals 11. Now you may think, well, isn't it plus and minus 11? Well, if it was minus 11, then that would completely and utterly mess up the highest common factor, lowest common multiple, because then you could end up with positive and negative numbers, and you tend to find that the highest common factor, lowest common multiples will never involve negatives. So again, here we're looking for a positive y value. So then moving on to question B, it says find the lowest common multiple of A and P. So from this, what I can then do is just simply replace y with 11, because I now know that y equals 11. So then from this, the lowest common multiple is then just multiplying everything in the Venn diagram, all the numbers in the Venn diagram together. So here I'm going to just try and not write a really extensive list. So I've got 3 3's, so that's going to be 3 cubed. I can see 4 5's, so that's 5 to the power of 4. and I've got 3 11s, so it's going to be 11 cubed. So if I type that all into my calculator, so 27 times 5 to the power 4 times 11 cubed, and it does give me a huge number, but I'm just going to read this off my calculator. So it's 22460,625, and there is my final answer. And hopefully that makes finding the highest common factor, lowest common multiple using a Venn diagram that little bit easier.